Although there is a little bit of organic animosity between Oklahoma State and Utah, naturally, as them being the top dog of the new group and us being essentially the top dog of the old group, there's some over and unders that may disagree. I may have some fun things to say about Utah, but we got a buddy on the show that can help us break down why Utah should be in the Big 12 title game.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things cowboy and cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at AllDayOState. Today, we're partially brought to you by LinkedIn. You all know that today's hiring is a complete crapshoot. That's why small businesses rank LinkedIn jobs number one. Post your job for free and faster by going to linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Go there now. Terms and conditions do apply. So when we've talked about Oklahoma State over and under, I assumed it would probably fall right around 8.5. Anything less than that, great for us. Anything more than that might be a little bit difficult. Utah, on the other hand, their over and under is pretty daggone high, which seemingly is pretty common. It's a pretty common consensus nationally. Utah's going to have a big year. I think Utah's really good. I think Utah's phenomenal for the Big 12. But at the same time, I have my reservations and I have some concerns. But it's okay because we got a Utah fella on the show today. My guy, Wild, how are we feeling, buddy?
Doing well. How you doing, Cody? How you doing, Cowboy Nation? Good to see y'all.
Well, I try not to complain because I learned a while back not everybody listens anyhow. There's some sports that we could complain about. We're going to save some of that for segment 3. All right, buddy. So I did my best to try to poke and prod the Utah fire at least a little bit. But me and you've had several conversations. You know the admiration I do, in fact, have for Utah, what they've been able to do, and how massively beneficial they are going to be in the Big 12. But I'll be honest with you, man. The target that Utah has set for themselves, and now the target that media is starting to put on top of Utah to go alongside this over-under, I don't envy your position, buddy. I'm not envious of it, but talk to us a little bit. Is 9.5, is that a steep opening line, or you feel pretty comfortable there?
So 9.5 wins here. That's what FanDuel says that the Utes should be an appropriate line for the Utes. And really, going into this year, the difference between this year and last year is Cameron Rising. Everyone expected Cameron Rising to come back last year from an ACL and MCL injury that he suffered in the Rose Bowl the prior season. And we all know he never came back. And he is the heart of the Utah program. He's the soul of the Utah program. He's arguably the best quarterback in Utah football history. So we're talking about like an elite player for the Utes that wasn't there the whole season last year, but is going to be there this season. Yo, check this out. So last year, Bryson Barnes started for the Utah Utes. Just to give you a heads up, Bryson Barnes was a 0-star recruit. Bryson played his heart out. He did the best he could, but he was a walk-on player for the Utes that ended up winning the starting role because of some other players that just couldn't beat him out. Also, in the spring game last year, this number 2 behind Cameron Rising, Brandon Rose, got hurt. In the spring game, he got freaking hurt, Cody. So we had our 3rd and 4th string quarterback we were playing all season, and mostly Bryson Barnes, again, a 0-star recruit. So,
dude, I didn't know he was a walk-on.
Oh,
I
yeah,
did not know that.
So whatever you saw last year is not going to be what you see this year. Cam Rising is a former 4-star recruit that transferred from Texas. He's been a star for multiple years. He's won 2 Pac-12 titles in his 3 years of starting. And so there's a really good reason to be optimistic about the Utah Utes. 9.5 wins, going back to that total, is certainly not too high for the Utes. In fact, I think that a 10-2 record would be the bare minimum I'll actually pick for the Utes. I mean, the Utes are looking with this squad at going 11-1 or 10-2. So 9.5. If the Utes end up with 9 wins or less, it's going to be a massively disappointing season this year.
That's a steep number, man. That is a
serious
steep number. I tell you what, again, I'm not envious. I love our position. Okay, 7.5. We haven't than that ever since Mike Gundy came here in 2005. So I'm all about it. I selfishly, right, I like to promote the Hammer the Over Club. We get to hammer the over. Utah, I'm not hammering 9.5. Okay, but hold my beer. Let's go over the schedule real quick. Okay, you open up against Southern Utah. That's a W. Then you play Baylor. That should definitely be a W. Utah State. Now, Utah State will be kind of interesting because they've had a lot of success in the transfer portal, including getting a decent amount of Utah guys. It'll definitely be a W, but it shouldn't be a complete cakewalk, right?
Cody, check this out. For Utah State, guess who the starting quarterback's going to be for Utah State in that game? Bryson Barnes, the quarterback for Utah last year. That game's in Logan, Utah. That game's at Utah State.
They've got a linebacker. I think there's a Utah linebacker that went to Utah State too.
They take a lot of Utah players. The Aggies do. The Utah State Aggies. Utah hasn't played in Logan, Utah for a long time because about 10 plus years ago, the Utes came down there as heavy favorites and lost. And I think that the program vowed to never play in Logan, Utah again. I don't know why this game's on the schedule. I hate this game so much. That game right there, I think that the Utes win, but it's going to be a tricky game right there. Utah State.
I agree. And then you got your first big boy. Well, okay, I can't say that because you do play Baylor. But your first big boy Big 12 road game is to Stillwater, America. Now, first, I got to ask, are you coming to that game?
I'm very likely coming to that game. Talking with a lot of you fans going to be traveling out there. So, hey, if I do end up going out to that game, I want Cowboy Nation to show me some love pregame. I get during the game, the war is on. I get it. But, hey, let's be cool. If I'm out there, let's share a beer together and everything. So, because I would love to check out the stadium. Boone Pickens is a place I've wanted to go for a long time. So, I'm going to try to make it out for Stillwater. And that's going to be a massive game. You know, Cody, Cowboy Nation knows it. Utah knows it. Like, that game is going to be critical to really who's going to win the conference.
It is. Here. I'm actually surprised they made that game so early. When you think of it on the flip side of it, with both of us having a large contingency of our rosters back and so on and so forth, that might be pretty strategic, right? Because if you lose early, gives you a really good shot to still get there at the end. It's when you lose late that kills you. So this might be strategic by Brett Yormark here. If it is, tip of the cap to you here, sir. All right. So, of course, I'm assuming that you think that you guys will, in fact, get the W. Now, I will say this. It being early and you guys being very prepared, it has me slightly concerned. All right. And I'll get to why. All right, but let's move on. Arizona's not going to be easy, right? They lose all of their coaching, which is not going to be easy, but they also bring back like 85% of the roster and 18 starters. They're going to be pretty good. What do you have on that game, my guy?
I will tell you this: Arizona beat the snot out of the Utes last year, and that was at Arizona. Utah has historically struggled going down to the desert to play Arizona. That game, Utah is going to be dialed in to take down the Wildcats based on the defeat last year. It's embarrassing for the program. Arizona has new head coach. Jed Fish was an amazing play caller. They've got talent. And a lot of Arizona fans think that they're going to steal this one from Utah again. No way. No freaking chance they're coming into Rice-Eccles and winning that football game. So I've got that slotted as a Utah win. But don't get me wrong. Arizona's a good team, and it's going to be a battle and everything. And if that's down in the desert, who knows what happens. But at Rice-Eccles, Utah takes care of business.
All right. You should beat Arizona State. Dude, TCU, it's going to be tricky this year. And I don't like TCU, waiting in the backgrounds. That's when they're typically dangerous. It's when nobody expects them to do anything. That's when they have these 11, 12 win freaking seasons. And they in Colorado did a lot through the portal, but they didn't have as much deficiencies as Colorado before they, got all these guys. So, buddy, I don't know that you win that one. that's that's a tricky business.
That's a home game. That's another home
It
game.
is.
That's a
It
big
is.
difference right there. Like a lot of the tough
Okay.
matchups are at home. And before we got pummeled by Oregon last year for College game day, at that game it was really pitiful. The Utah hadn't lost in multiple years at home. Utah's a very, very good home field advantage. Very hard to beat the Utes at Rice-Eccles Stadium. I anticipate that for the next year into the future years. So TCU is going to come in. Utes going to be pretty heavy favorite in that game. So I feel comfortable with it.
Houston with Willie Fritz is going to be a problem. I just don't know that they're a problem quite in year one under Willie Fritz, so you should have that one. You get BYU at home. I'm actually not impressed with what BYU did in the portal. They actually didn't even look like they tried all that hard, so you should win that one. Colorado into the year, okay, you ready? Into the year, Colorado at Colorado. This is where I think Utah might have some difficulties, is the final 3 weeks. You should beat Colorado. Absolutely.
I think, yeah.
But whatever happens in that game, the Big 12 is a war of attrition. It's a war of attrition. If you have injuries in that game or coming into that game, the next week against Iowa State, buddy, I know Iowa State comes to Utah, but that's that 3 week stretch there. I think that's going to be difficult for y'all. I really do. It's so the beginning of the season, I think you'll be dialed in, you'll be healthy. I think you might cakewalk quite a few games. But the last few games of the season in the Big 12 where you're beat up and you're usually on a decent amount of second teamers, that's where I see some issues. And as we talked a little off air, you guys lost a lot in the back end. Now, I know this is probably one of the best defenses to ever roll through Utah. Your defensive line and linebacker crew are top notch. I get that. But your secondary, it concerns me a little bit.
There's a lot of returning talent in the secondary. We lose. I mean, every year it seems like a Utah player is going pro in the secondary. So it's not new that we're not losing a ton of swath of talent. 2 years ago, our recruiting class was really, really strong, especially in the secondary. So there's a lot of younger players that are going to be playing first year this year. And for one name to keep in mind, Smith Snowden. Smith Snowden's going to be a superstar in the Big 12. I wouldn't be surprised to see him on Big 12 watch list in the future here. But I think that when you're a Utah fan, you're pretty comfortable with Utah's defense year in, year out. It's going to be the offense. The question is going to be, can Cam Rising stay healthy? If Cam Rising stays healthy the whole year, they're going to be a bear. Utah's going to be favored in every game other than maybe Oklahoma State and Stillwater. That game, I have no idea what the spread's going to be. I can see the Utes be underdogs. They're going to be favored in all the rest of the games. As long as Rising's playing, if Rising gets hurt, the season's over. Like, I mean, really, you're going to have a winning season and stuff, but the special season that a lot of Utes anticipate is completely gone if Rising's down. You've got some good backup quarterbacks, but that just changes everything. Cam Rising is the player that lifts you from an 8-win, 9-win team to possibly a 10 or 11. Like, it's everything as far as, like, you know, being a national power and everything like Utah's hoping to do this year. The one tricky game, though, that I'm kind of thinking through is the UCF game at the end of the season. Going to the bounce house and that game right there before a potential Big 12 championship is a game that has me a little weary, and that is so far from Utah going out to Central Florida that looks like it could be somewhat of a trap game. I feel pretty good about the Colorado game, and here's why. Just like last year, Colorado, they have really good skill position players, but their trenches were so weak. They were one deep last year. Once they took some injuries, they just totally got pummeled in the trenches. They try to beef up the trenches this year, so they're a little stronger, but they're still lacking in the trenches. So when you get Colorado towards the end of the year, you can run the ball on them. So it's really nice and fortuitous to get the buffs at the end of the year rather than the beginning of the year. So I like that aspect of it. But, yeah, it's going to be a tricky game up in Boulder, especially with, like, Deion's crew. They're going to be better this year. Right. UCF, and I think Arizona, again, going back to that game, Arizona, UCF, Oklahoma State, and, of course, the rivalry game with BYU. Those are tricky games. In the rivalry game, weird stuff happens, right? Like in every rivalry game, so you can never really be 100% certain how that game's going to go. I think it's going to be a battle. But the Utes do have more talent, and they're at home, so they should take care of business.
You do have a considerable amount of home games. I will definitely give you that, and that should tilt some things in your favor. All right, so up next, we're going to talk about the tiering system. Josh Pate obviously came out with the tier. We're going to do it a hair different than he did it, but by and large, it's going to be kind of the same conversation. But real quick, before we do, I have to remind the people out here, do not get caught up in the crapshoot of hiring. It is a high stakes wager whenever you're trying to hire the right people for your company and you don't want to get caught flat-footed, no-footed, or unprepared. LinkedIn is not just another job board. They have a vast network with over 1 billion professionals to help you find the best place for hiring. It gives you access to professionals you cannot find anywhere else. LinkedIn does everything for you while making the process super simplistic and intuitive in your hiring search. It is so easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate in the first 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses, and they may not have the time or resources used to for hiring. LinkedIn is consistently finding ways to make the job process easier for you. Right now, you can post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Again, that is linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Go there now, post your job for free. Of course, terms and conditions do in fact apply. All right, buddy. So Josh Pate put out the tiering system. Now, where I differ a little bit is because he decided to do the last 3 years a combined overall success over the last 3 years plus the combined recruiting classes. I think that's just a little bit unnecessary. We're going to trim some of the fat off of that and just look at right here, right now, where do we stand and what are the tiering systems? All right, so real quick, we'll go over Josh Pate's tier. And, of course, tier 1, you have Utah, Oklahoma State, and I think that's very fair, Kansas State, and Texas Tech, okay? Right, save your thoughts. Tier 2, TCU, KU, and UCF. Tier 3, Arizona, Iowa State, Colorado, and West Virginia. Tier 4, Arizona State, Baylor, your buddies up the road, BYU, and the Cincinnati Bearcats. All right, so when you think of tier 1, is there anything that stands out to you or is unexpected out of Utah, K-State, O-State, and Texas Tech?
Texas Tech is a bit surprised to be in tier 1. Texas Tech's recruiting class is really good this year. I know that program's kind of just waiting in the wings to take the next step. Just don't think they're quite there yet, and especially with the recent success of Arizona. I think Arizona's being way undercut. Like, we'll see what happens now that Jetfish is gone. But where that program is going and the momentum they have with no feet at the helm, I think that they're definitely tier up. And Texas Tech is one that could reach that top tier. They just haven't proven it on the field yet. So I wouldn't put Texas Tech there quite yet.
I am with you, 100% with you. Texas Tech is up and coming. They've had back-to-back really good recruiting classes. I'm a firm believer that their quarterback is the best up-and-coming quarterback in the Big 12 and Baron Morton. But just like I agree with you, I think this is disrespectful to Arizona right here, right now. They do return a bunch of All-American level dudes. But to me, this is a massive slap in the face to KU. All Lance Leipold has done is show up and win and win and win. And they also return almost 90% of their roster. They also return 18, 19 starters. I'm with you on Arizona, but I'm even more so like I would swap KU and Texas Tech here all day, every day. Another thing, I'm a firm believer that TCU will get back, right? Let's jump into tier 2. I don't think UCF is in tier 2 quite yet, man. And I know that's said a lot from an OSU fan since they beat us down in the bounce house. Okay, I get it, but dude, I'm not a firm believer in Gus Malzahn. I don't think that you can be this far into your coaching career and you still have a bunch of fourth quarter punting, kicking field goals at the wrong time, mismanaging timeouts, forgetting you don't have any timeout, that type of stuff. He's been coaching for most of my life, and he's still making those mistakes in fourth quarters. To me, that's inexcusable. So UCF may have a bunch of talent, but with Gus Malzahn still having the fourth quarter, I don't know what to do with my hands, Ricky Bobby moments. I'm not a firm believer, buddy. What say you?
Oh, man, I'm the exact opposite of you, Cody. I'm a huge UCF believer here because I think KJ Jefferson's the real deal.
All right.
He's proven it in the SEC. The recruiting class is super excellent. This program, UCF, has potential to be one of the best teams in the whole conference here in a year or two. Maybe it's not this year, but looking at 2-3 years down the line with the recruiting talent that they plucked. And again, this year with KJ Jefferson, they're going to be way sneaky good. And like the bounce house is a hard place to play, but I think that they're a sneaky play this year. And I would definitely put them in a tier 2. I would put them over KU, honestly. I like UCF over KU. Like I'm just not a huge believer in KU.
What?
I know that they've had some good seasons. Coach Lance is a great coach and everything, but I just think that KU is a little bit of fool's gold, honestly. They lose Jason Bean, who's a stud backup quarterback. Daniels has had a hard time staying healthy. And I think that you can beat KU in the trenches. And I think that with physicality, you take KU out and everything. They were playing that speed and quickness game and everything, but without Bean, I think they lose a lot there. And I just think that KU is going to take a small step back. So I wouldn't actually put KU in maybe the top 2 tiers here, but I would put UCF there certainly. And where UCF's going, they're about to be a tier 1 program next year or two.
Well, I'll be darned. You know what? That's actually, that I don't agree, but I think it's a pretty daggone decent take. All right. Tier 3, you got Arizona, which we both agree needs to be higher, right? So we can call that what it is. Iowa State, Colorado, West Virginia. Okay. Iowa State, this makes sense. This is typically where Iowa State is, right? Tier 2, tier 3, pretty normally. Colorado, this is just based off what we think their portal is going to look like. So to me, putting them in tier 3 right here, right now, just doesn't even make sense. Even if you use the Josh Pate formula and you go off the last 3 years of success, it still doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me that they would be in tier 3 as opposed to tier 4. I like Colorado. I like Dion. I just think that this is, you said fool's gold. To me, this is putting the cart before the horse. But West Virginia might be a little bit low after a 9-win season last year and a decent amount of guys returning there too. So, yeah, I think maybe Colorado is a little too high here. West Virginia might be a little bit too low. Iowa State feels about right. Does that feel pretty squared on for you?
I think that Colorado is the most up and down team in the entire Big 12. Like I don't have a good grasp on them. They could seriously be tier 1 or they could be the last tier. Like you don't know. So throwing them right in the mid tier kind of makes sense, right? Like
yeah.
I mean the Buffs. I mean Shedeur Sanders is a star.
And
like if they did improve in the trenches, and they got some good recruits in the trenches and everything. If they play a lot better, they're going to win some big time games. So they're really just injuries are going to really impact the team, like more than most teams and everything because of the lack of depth. So they're so up and down. I'll probably throw them right there in the middle because you've no idea. It's kind of a safe spot for them. Iowa State is a sneaky good team, borderline tier 2 team. That's one team that I didn't give play earlier, saying that they're coming to Rice Eccles and they're going to give the Utes a heck of a game. It's a physical football team. And the way that Matt Campbell coaches, I mean, they're going to be well coached and ready for that game. So I don't want to. I mean, that's a team that I really respect, that Iowa State Cyclone team. So I think that they're borderline. And West Virginia, I think, had a really good year last year. We'll see kind of if they can keep on that level, if they're going to regress a little bit. So I think that those kind of fit right where they are.
Arizona State, Baylor, Cincinnati, they definitely belong down here for now. But is BYU? Actually, you know what? BYU does deserve to be down there. They didn't have a good year. They didn't really go after the transfer portal very aggressively, and the recruiting rankings didn't. I don't know, man. It almost looks like Kalani Sitake feels like he already has the right roster, but it didn't look like it last year.
Yeah, so whenever you've got a Ute supporter, a Ute podcaster speaking of BYU is going to be a little divisive, right? Because I've got thoughts on the program that maybe some of the BYU folks wouldn't share. Hey, I love my Big 12 Mafia. I'm talking with BYU folks every day and stuff, a lot of BYU fans. One of the things that's a trick, though, for BYU is like trying to recruit with the honor code at the school. So BYU, all students of BYU have to abide by the honor code, which makes sense, and that's like really something that they support a lot. But it's a tough sell for some kids out of state, and some kids.
Okay.
So recruiting in the Big 12 might be a challenge for BYU because of the honor code and some of those dynamics. And so I think BYU really needs to be more homegrown and recruit heavy out of Utah. really build the trenches up, kind of like the University of Utah has, and be really strong in the trenches. They might never have the skill position players at receiver that are going to wow you, but they can get quarterbacks with, good arms, really good tight ends and stuff. But they need to build homegrown teams. So they're never going to wow you with recruiting classes based on the honor code dynamic. But they're always going to be, I think Slick-Taki's a really good coach. I think they're going to be well coached. They're going to play nasty defense, and they're going to build this thing in the trenches. So it's not surprising that the recruiting isn't great. It's going to improve a little bit, but that's just something to keep in mind with the Cougars. They're always going to be better than you think.
Yeah. You know what? I really do think that, the Holy War is going to provide a lot of things. And you just brought up a very, very good point. But one of the things you said there was, they're going to kind of have to be homegrown. Who else needs to be more homegrown is Utah. Stay out of Oklahoma taking our daggone quarterbacks, okay? No more of that. No more of that. No more of that. All right. Hey, speaking of the money situation, it doesn't have to be an honor code or anything like that. We all know that sometimes you got to make us the money, honey. Bills are tight. Economy is kind of wild at times. FanDuel can help you get your pocketbook right, and you already know right here, right now. You heard it first. If you're a Utah fan, I guess you're going to hit the over. If you're a Cowboy fan, we're absolutely hammering the over 7.5. That feels disrespectful. So disrespectful. I like it. Just like you should like an extra $150 back in bonus bets if you place a $5 or more bet and you win. Bada boom, bada bing, bada bang. That $150 is yours in bonus bets. Even though football season is not here at the moment, basketball is. So while we're making buckets, let's make some bucks too. Bet on all of your favorite NBA players or teams with FanDuel, whether it be quick bets, same game parlays, exclusive player props, who's going to score the next bucket, who's going to win the whole game, the whole daggone thing. Go to FanDuel.com/lockedon today. Shoot your next shot, but make sure it's your best shot with FanDuel. FanDuel is the official partner of the NBA. All right. We're going to bring this thing on home here. Okay. Again, if y'all could stay out of Tulsa, Oklahoma in recruiting, we would appreciate it. But until then, okay, let's talk a little bit. I just want to say, for as much shade as I feel like I'm going to throw occasionally at Utah, okay, the Holy War is going to save a lot of the Big 12 come rivalry weekend. We don't have any more Bedlams, right? We don't have any more Red Rivers. The biggest mistake, one of the only mistakes that I've seen Brett Yormark make, in my opinion, is the future schedules. Right? Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, that should be a game that's played every single year. Again, Iowa State, K-State, it should be played every single year. But guess what? They're not. There's going to be 2-3 years where we don't play Texas Tech in a row. There's going to be 2 or 3 years where they don't play Farmageddon in a row. That is so dumb. But thankfully, the Holy War was something they did, in fact, get right, and it will be one of the few year in, year out, guaranteed rivalry week style of matchups in the Big 12. So thank you, okay, for coming on board. I know Utah fans, y'all had your pink in the air, sipping your tea for a while. But, dude, tell us kind of what the Holy War is going to mean now that you're both in the Big 12. Like you said, it's almost like BYU's too nice. Being in the Big 12 should kick this thing up a notch, shouldn't it?
Well, BYU is too nice to everybody else in the Big 12, but you can bet your bottom dollar they're not nice to the Ute fans. Here, BYU takes their gloves off and fights, man.
All right.
The Holy War means everything. Like, I went in my undergrad program at the University of Utah. We were in the Mountain West. We played the Holy War, right? So I've seen the game played like with stuff on the line, with a Fiestable berth on the line back in 04-05. When there were magnitude of games for Mountain West championships, there's such a big game. And like the difference with the Holy War is like, yeah, okay, the rivalry dynamic and stuff, but the religious component is actually like, it brings a different flavor to the game where there's just like a lot of venom in the game. And it's kind of odd too, because, half of Utah's student body is LDS and most of, BYU's is too, but that brings a different element to the game. where it just gets a little nutty and stuff, and people just lose their emotions a little bit more because of that aspect to it. And that's really unique. But in the game, I mean, both teams, just the fans lose everything, just like lose their minds on everything. Like the best behaviors out the door. It's just wild. It's wacky. It's crazy. It gets ugly. There's venom. For a long time, they said, hey, we shouldn't even play this game in the state because it gets so nasty. All of a sudden, like
Really?
we're good people out here in Utah, but during the game week, it's just like people turn into Badgers, man. Like it's just the craziest thing.
I
like,
love
seriously.
it. That's
And
how
so
it's
having
supposed to
that
be,
game back,
man.
well, check it out. Like having that game back and say that Utah and BYU are playing for like a chance at a Big 12 championship with a playoff berth on the line. Like the magnitude of the game is greater than it's ever been. The exposure is greater than it's ever been. Yormark's going to market this game tremendously. So it's going to blow up, and like the emotions are just going to blow up too. And I'm so excited to have it back because I mean, really, BYU is Utah's true rival. Always has been. It was never USC. It was always BYU, and like having this matchup back in a conference game in an A4 conference, soon to be A3 after the ACC falls apart here. So,
Yep.
Awesome. And what I want to see though is I want to see one game played at Rice-Eccles Stadium, one game played at Lavelle Edwards, and one game played in Las Vegas. I want there to be a 3-year rotation like that because there's so many Utah and BYU fans that love to go to the games down in Vegas. It's about a 6-hour drive. It'll be so much fun to have a rotation like that for the Holy War. And maybe Yormark will make that happen. So, hey, Yormark, if you're listening, check that out. Consider that idea. Have a Vegas game. Just make it a big event, man.
I don't speak for Yormark, but if I would, I'd imagine he's sitting there saying, don't tempt me with a good time.
Right?
All right. So before we get that on off of here, all right, us in Cowboy country, from a baseball perspective, we expect, right, to be hosting a regional every single year. We expect to be in a super regional, not always hosting, but we should. Is it comparable in Utah country? Because I'll be realistic with you. I've seen some stuff about swimming and tennis and other sports that we don't necessarily get into a lot down in Cowboy country. I recently found women's tennis, and dude, I'm 36. I said I would never watch tennis. I actually did thoroughly enjoy it. So now I'm hooked a little bit.
Yeah.
But what are some sports that Utah is going to bring to the Big 12 where you feel like they're going to be better than a lot of the Big 12 schools or instantaneously competitive, just like football?
I would say the two sports I'm thinking of here are women's basketball.
Okay.
The Utes women's basketball team is very, very strong. This year, they've got a solid team. Last year, they made a really deep run in the NCAA tournaments. And so the Pac-12 and the women's sports are really, really elite. And so I think a lot of the women's sports are going to be competitive immediately, and especially women's basketball. And the other one's another women's sports, and that's gymnastics. Utah has a top 5 gymnastic program for many, many years, Red Rocks, that actually, believe this or not, they sell some of the Red Rock games sell out more than the men's basketball games. People are crazy about gymnastics out here in Utah.
Really?
Like the Red Rocks are a huge draw, absolutely nationwide. Okay. They've been for a long, long time. There's Olympians that have come from the Utah gymnastics for the U.S. And so gymnastics, women's basketball, and all other women's sports are something to watch. The baseball program had a good run a year or two ago, but the Pac-12 is pretty good baseball. I know the Big 12 is very elite at baseball too. So I would imagine that Utah, will find its footing there as well. So it's exciting. The men's basketball program might, take some licks because the Big 12 is so strong in basketball and everything. And the Utes have struggled to getting better, but struggle in the Pac-12. So I'd imagine that it would take a while for the men's basketball program to get back to its former glory back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Believe it or not, Utah actually has an NCAA championship in basketball. It's like 50 years ago or so. Seriously, yeah. They were an NCAA champion at one point.
No, that is awesome.
And before the Utes football program really rose to prominence, before Urban Meyer came for the University of Utah, basketball was the sport. Everyone went to the games. It was all about basketball. Then that flipped when the football program rose.
I think I actually remember that. Now that you said that, I think I do recall Utah being legitimately a basketball a school for a while ago. That's pretty cool, man. Well, I'm excited. I'll tell you this. If you come to Stillwater, okay, I'll make sure that you'll have a whale of a time. And And you'll see if you go to Stillwater, it's a pretty unique place, right? And we're that type of school that we're almost too friendly too. Whenever people show up, for the only time we're looking to throw hands is Bedlam. Every other game, like we're all about having fun and eating together and hanging out together. But yeah, Bedlam's a different story, right? I wake up every Bedlam ready to throat punch everybody I see wearing any shade of maroon, burgundy, call it what you want to call it. They call it crimson, right? They're a wannabe Bama. Let's not get down that road right there. Okay. Dude, it's been a while that we've been talking about getting you on here. So I'm greatly appreciative of your time. Like I said, I want to poke some of the Utah O State fire because it's organically just kind of there, right? Yeah. It's the team, because after OU left, there's nobody in the Big 12 that has more W's. Oklahoma State. And then Texas for the last 14 years hasn't really been an issue for Oklahoma State. It's always been Bedlam. And we always came up typically on the wrong side of that. But after winning 2 of the last 3 and the last one in the Big 12, I'm excited. And now I'm excited to see what the Holy War provides, because, again, as much as I want to fuel Flames, I do know them joining the Big 12 was a big moment for solidification. And it's now led to everybody can point and laugh at the ACC because they're the ones that are on completely unstable. And like you already mentioned, it kind of feels like Pac-12, right? Florida State is going to get out of there eventually. Like they're dead set on it. It's going to happen. And when that happens, it's a domino effect.
You bet.
As soon as Oregon's like, hey, guys, we're thinking about doing something here. The other players in the Pac-12 that could make a move, they were planning ahead.
It's absolutely
so. Right. Yeah, it works out, dude. Come to Stillwater, you'll have a blast. How close is Salt Lake City to Provo? Because I will be in Provo when we go play BYU.
Oh, right on. Yeah, Salt Lake City's less than an hour away from Provo. So like with traffic, maybe an hour, about 30, 45 minutes. Yeah, we'll meet up for sure. Hey, Cody, one last thought too. You're going to like this, okay? Okay, we're going to go back to football, Utah football. So I did a little analysis, before our show today. Okay. So ESPN Football Power Index, FPI, right? That's a metric where it measures like your efficiency for your football program, your recruiting success. A lot goes into it. It's pretty accurate. I love ESPN FPI. Well, I threw Texas, OU, USC, UCLA, Washington, Oregon out. And I measured where Utah would fall compared to the Big 12, the new Big 12, and all the Big 12 teams over the last 6 years, but throughout the COVID season, okay? So let me just tell you where FPI would stack rank the Utes over from 2018 through 2023. Okay, this will give you a really good indication of where Utah really measures up on an apples-to-apples basis, okay?
Okay.
So back in 2018, Utah would have been second in the new Big 12 based on their FPI score, okay? 2019, first. In 2020, throw it out, COVID season. 2021, third. 2022, first in the new Big 12. First over TCU. FBI actually had Utah over TCU despite their championship run. But Utah's FBI was number 1 in the new Big 12. Then this last year with Bryson Barnes at the helm, Utah would have been 4th. So looking at history, Utah should be able to compete immediately in the Big 12. And it's going to be a fun year. And I'm telling you, it could just come down to the Stillwater game, man. So it's going to be a big one, y'all.
It's very possible that we could see each other twice. It is very, very, very possible. All right, buddy. Let the fine folks out here in Cowboy Country know how they can get a hold of you and watch your stuff, because I will admit your stuff's legitimate. I'm a big fan. I love what Bomber and Big 12 Mafia do. But yeah, man, keep fighting the good fight and let everybody know how they can track you down and catch your stuff.
Yeah, I'm part of the College Football Mafia team here. So College Football Mafia is a channel where we discuss college football news, realignment. And I started a new series called Wild Ute University. And Wild Ute University is taking a deep dive and analysis into expansion candidates for different conferences, looking at who fits into the Big Ten right now. You bet your bottom dollar that here in a couple months, I'm going to be looking at the Big 12 here and looking at who's the best candidates from the ACC and elsewhere for the Big 12. So check it out, Wild Ute University, College Football Mafia.
I love it. All right, buddy. Well, I'm going to go off here and go celebrate this wrestling Bedlam W, because Bedlam W's are always fun. And yeah, we're going to go try to compete in a national title. All right, boss man. Thank you for your time. You are amazing. Everybody say hello, say goodbye to the guy who looks like Clark Kent. All right, you can call him Superman. You can call him Wild Ute. You can call him what you need to call him, but he's going to say go Pokes more often than not. I think that's
Yeah,
he's
I
leaning
love
in.
the Cowboys.
Yeah.
I love the Cowboys, man.
All right, buddy.
Go Utes.
Appreciate you, man. All righty, y'all. Well, that's all we're going to have for this one right here. I think the battles between Utah and Oklahoma State are going to be very, very good for years to come. There are a lot of similarities. When Kyle Whittingham and Mike Gundy do decide to hang it up, a lot of the old school acronyms for the coaching trees for the Big 12 are kind of changing. Willie Fritz will add to that. Lance Leipold will add to that, but it will be different. There is a changing of the guard. So enjoy the times you get to see Whittingham versus Gundy, because they're both old dogs in a new game. All righty, y'all. As always, you know I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here in Locked On Oklahoma State. You could be anywhere, so happy you choose to be here. Like it if you like the daggone thing. Dislike it if you don't, because that's okay too. All righty, y'all. You know the drill. Later, taters.